Now, it is again that time of the week when you join us for the Monaghan Way in association with Northern Sound and indeed myself, Sean McCaffrey. I believe we're up to episode 14. Can't believe that we're that far into this podcast series. And of course, over the past number of weeks, our focus has been on the Monaghan Senior Club Championship. We have touched on the Junior and Intermediate Championships, obviously, as well, but the main focus is the Senior Championship. And I'm sure maybe you've been catching up on some of our previous podcasts there as well. And we do thank you for that. They're available on all your podcast platforms, your Spotify, your Apple, and indeed on YouTube streaming services as well. So thank you for that. And it's been interesting being out and about some of the comments that's been passed to us as well of people tuning in and listening in to us here. I'm delighted I'm joined again by Fergal Monaghan to look back firstly last weekend in the championship and more importantly to look forward. And we've also clarified it and cleared it with Fergal that you're on full battery mode, I believe, this time around, Fergal. So you are.
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah, there's no escape this time, unless that window's open at the back there behind me. But no, we're gonna. There's no escaping this time. We're gonna hold firm, hopefully.
Well, I had your back covered anyway because anyone that was tuned into the last one will know your battery died just when I was getting you to give me a prediction for Carduff over True, and I come back in again and I said I think Fergal was itching towards it being Carduff. And in fairness, it was the right call. It was one of the first games that got us going last weekend. And a game that I was at myself. And I have to say, I didn't see the result coming. Or maybe you've seen the result coming, but certainly not the gap on the scoreboard that was there. Carduff winning comfortably at a canter, 126-27 and finished up.
Yeah, I was listening to you, Sean, with your updates as well. I wasn't at that one, but we knew there was going to be a backlash in Carduff. I met some of the Carduff players who were watching Anna Mullen v Inniskeen on Saturday or Sunday afternoon, and I said I don't take training with them. I mean, it was training good crack during the weekend. They shook their head and smiled, and they don't know if there was a word spoken during training because they would have hurt badly against Clontibret. And I knew even speaking to their management, Banty and the likes after, like they wouldn't have been happy at how they performed. But they got it right. They haven't lost. I think they've only lost about one game in the last number of years at home. They don't lose many at home, but there was a strong win that day, Sean. You made that clear. I think it was 118 to 2 points. And what's coming clearer and clearer in the championship now is 2-pointers. Teams that can hit 2-pointers are massive. And we were back to that kind of league situation where in the county situation where 2-pointers and wind and halves, getting a big lead in the first half was important. Fergal Hannerty, Sean Burns, Sean McInerney, all these guys chipped in. I think Fergal might have hit 7, maybe 5 in the first half. I'm not sure, but that was massive scoring really. And True, okay, you could be forgiven or not getting going with the wind and whatever. I know Callum McKenna played well for True, but the start that they needed in the second half was got to Carduff with the goal, and that was it. But Carduff will be very happy with how they played. But the True men, they'll be very disappointed because they didn't, wind and all that aside, they didn't do enough. And they'll have to really, get back up. They have 2 points in the board, but that will put a real dent into confidence. Not that they lost; it's hard to win away from home, but the manner of the loss would be a real problem there.
Absolutely. Yeah, maybe like Carduff, they'll take from that and be thinking, as you said, there might be much talking needs to be done in training this week for them ahead of what is another tough assignment for True. County champion Scottstown, of course, down in St. Mellons this weekend. We'll touch on that one in a moment or two. But just from the Carduff perspective, that first half performance and the concession of the 3 quick-fire goals, when I was speaking to Seamus McInerney afterwards, a remark to him that there was probably some positive he would have took out of it. Now, he wasn't looking at too many positives coming out of Clontibret, but their second half performance, they seemed to carry that through then into this performance against True.
Yeah, they did, and they showed character in that second half against what turns out as results. We saw you were in Scottstown against Clontibret, which ended up a draw. Clontibret are a serious outfit. Like there's no shame in losing to Clontibret, but Carduff were very good in the second half, and they got going, and they got their own 3 goals, which is fair shooting as well. And to score 3 goals and still lose a championship match, probably disappointing. Look, the big thing for all these teams, and Carduff are no different, is stopping teams running through, beating that first tackle when they get through with the new rules and the space that's in there. When teams get off the shoulder and run straight at a defence, there's very few teams able to stop it as far as I can see. And Carduff didn't stop it against Clontarf, and Clontarf didn't stop it against Carduff in that second half. That's, I suppose, how they're going to fix that. Progressing in the championship, when the air gets thinner and the teams get better, and it becomes knockout stuff where every mistake is kind of multiplied and becomes a bigger issue, and the outcomes of that mistake can really punish you. But definitely, I was making the point they weren't scoring enough points. They fixed that against Trude, Fergal Monaghan, Dee Marn, Sean Burns, all these guys, Peter Connolly, they're all. They answered that, and they did score a lot. They scored an incredible amount, really. 26 points, so it's fair shooting. So they're in good shape. Jordan McGarrell flying as well for Carduff. Just they're going to have to make sure, as all teams are, and it's not simple. I don't know how they're going to do it. Better minds than you and I will have to come up with this solution. But that running off the shoulder, running straight, when you beat that first tackle, seeing Andrew and the loop pass over the top, it's opening teams up. Seeing Andrew Woods with a great goal against Anna Mullen as well in the beginning of the second half. And it's always those teams that are winning at halftime and get that big score at the beginning of the second half, as Inniskeen did against Anna Mullen, which we'll come to. It kind of sinks that challenge. It's real hard to come back from it, particularly when there's a wind and you're going against wind. If you get a goal against the wind, it's really big.
It certainly is. And goals, in fairness, Truth did get 2 of them in the second half. They would have left maybe another 2 to 3 behind them as well. One cleared off the line, one crashing off the crossbar, and even in the first half as well, I know they'd gotten in for goal chances. So there's still plenty to work on, I suppose, as we'd say, from the Carduff perspective. The one thing I do have to note, their levels of fitness was just something incredible. On a very, very warm day on what was Saturday past, they were still flying coming towards the end of that game, and that could be something that could carry them a long way into the championship. And you noted about, as now the championship progressed, the third weekend, the air getting a little bit thinner, your chances of maybe making knockout stages getting less and less, the quality going up. I would argue the quality was a mark up in Scottstown Saturday evening, Clontarf against Scottstown, and one of those games, two big giants of the senior championship going head to head. They were just like two heavyweight boxers, and it was a case of just punching each other out and ending up a draw in that one as well. And our good friend Desi Moan with the 2-pointer.
Yes, Desi was rolling back the years, and he even got a couple of fist pumps in as well. Which is, look, at Desi's 23 years playing championship football for Clontarf. And I think what really, look, to set the scene, you were there, Sean. Desi, Clontarf 2 points down. The ball was being played over and back outside that 2-point arc. Charlie Moan, Desi's nephew, making his first championship season. He made his debut against Carduff last week. He was there. They were passing the ball over and back. They were trying to get it to the shooter, Conor McManus, but he had 2 men on him. And eventually, Scottstown dared Desi to have a shot, and Desi duly did, and he sailed it over the bar. And I think, as you said, Sean, he turned and ran and did a fist bump before he even seen it go over the bar. He knew when he hit the laces that it was over the bar. Look, he's a great player, Desi. He's still playing well, in fairness to him. He only came on as a sub in that game. But, Clontarf there, I thought they looked immensely fresher than they have in years gone by. About 18 months ago, you'd be asking, maybe there was a bit of a staleness about them. Maybe the younger players or the newer players weren't, stepping up as much, and they were still reliant on the older players. Well, that's not the case now. Throughout the team, they've got everyone's singing off the same hymn sheet, so to speak. Great goalkeeper, Killian Lavelle back to full fitness, Jack Gormley going well, Conor Boyle there, Conor Doyle flying, good midfield, and Francis Hughes and Brian Greenan, Aaron Carey with county experience. Dara Hughes is injured, but you have Ryan McWigan who's flying, Dean McDonald, and then you've got Conor McManus. And I'll go back to that point you made, Sean, about the 2-pointers. You have a 2-point specialist there in Conor McManus. New rules were made for him. And the great thing about Conor now, we used to see Conor in the county jersey, and you'd wonder, why is Conor McManus back in the full back line trying to help out the defence? He doesn't have to do that now. 3 men up, he stays up all the time. A man in the twilight of his career can save himself. And there's a freshness about Clontarf. I didn't know, we didn't know what to expect. Scottstown had and it's duly noted that both teams who didn't play last week, Maracloon were beaten by Latin, and Scottstown failed to beat Clontarf. They didn't lose, that's important, but they didn't win either. But they have a few injuries now. I know Miel McCarville rolled in his ankle at the end of the game, and he couldn't be replaced. I think all the subs were used at that point. And Gavin McPhillips, county man as well. That's midfield. Gavin went off with a knock. I think he ran into one of his own players, and that's a worry. So Clontarf will have a bit of work to do in the injury crisis. And of course, Ryan O'Toole and Conor McCarthy weren't playing. Now, whether I think Ryan might be back, I'm not sure about Conor. I think he's slight groin injury. I don't know. I'm in the dark here. This is just, but he wasn't playing anyway for whatever reason. He was injured. So they're two big players not playing as well. Now, Darren Hughes was in full forward, moving back out. Look, Scottstown are a stung animal now, and there's going to be a backlash here because I know they would not have been happy not to get the 2 points at home. But the fact that they didn't play the week before definitely counted against them. And also coming up against Clontarf side that are certainly on an upward trajectory is interesting. But I think Scottstown are playing this week and they're playing their neighbours. It's a local derby, playing True. They're away in St. Mellons. True have a lot of questions to answer, but I tell you, Scottstown, no more than Carduff, I think there'll be a big backlash there because, Scottstown haven't suddenly become not the favourites for this championship. They're still the favourites for this championship. From a Clontarf point of view, I think it's a great result. I think Clontarf beating Scottstown. I can't see Scottstown losing. If Scottstown lose one game, that'll be it max, in my opinion. And it's just a matter of if they lose in the group. They didn't. I think if Clontarf bet Scottstown, I think it'd be very hard to beat Scottstown twice in the one championship. They may meet again later on. So I think it's a good result for Clontarf. They didn't lose, they didn't win. But I couldn't see Scottstown losing any more than one game, and they haven't lost yet. But as I say, if you're going to take a shot at the King, you better not miss. And if you're going to beat Scottstown, I think you got to beat them in knockout because very hard to beat this Scottstown team twice. But they have David McCaig, no better man to get lads up and running. He will be, he'll have these lads ready next week at the weekend. But just the injuries, any team, whether it be a county team, like you saw Monaghan with the injuries in 2024, it's tough. So those injuries will be a problem. No more than Ballabay struggling with injuries. Yeah, club teams, and I know Scottstown have a brilliant panel and everything, but like I'm after mentioning 2 injuries there. Like Conor McCarthy's an all-star. It's very hard to he'll be a loss if he's not available. Maybe he is available. Now time will tell, and we'll find out at the weekend. You're going to be there, Sean, I think, for that one.
Yeah, I'm indeed. Yeah, and funny, I was actually beside Conor. We were watching the game, and Ryan O'Toole had joined us as well. And I just had a quick word with Conor. Now, he wasn't given a time frame in regards to when he would be back or that, but it is obviously a long-term injury that he's dealing with. And similar then to Ryan O'Toole, and you said there, the case wasn't helped by the 2 knocks, but then they were able to draw the likes of Kieran Hughes in from the bench then as well and place him into the foray as well. So it shows now that they have an abundance of quality on their bench, should it be required. It's interesting, just before we look at the next 2 games, Fergal, you touched on something there, the rules and how it has rejuvenated or reinvented teams and in particular players. And we'll touch on that. Manzi, it's reinvented him as a player. And we could see that. You've seen it against Carduff. I seen it at the weekend against Scottstown, that expectation of him having to cover the field, it's not there anymore. He can stay in the one position that he's extremely dangerous in, just inside the scoring arc. And he occupies 2 men straight away. There's no doubt about that. One to be near man marking and another to be watching to ensure that the ball's not being fed into him.
Yeah, and I'd say Conor, the new rules have come, well, probably haven't come at a good time for him. I think he would have loved these new rules maybe 10 years ago, but the point he scored at the beginning of the second half against Carduff last week, he got the ball from the throw in and he ran along right towards goal and fisted the ball over the bar. Like it was, it was like a young fella. Like, so also he would probably, whether the new rules come in or not, he probably would have had to change his game anyway to stay up further and, not to cover as much miles. He just can't do it. And with his hip injury and whatnot, but it suits. But also, Sean, on the new rules, I was standing beside me was Porrick Duffy from Scottstown. We know Porrick. He was talking about the new rules and how you said the word rejuvenation. There's a freshness about the game. We cover a lot of games over the years, and the new rules. You do a game on the radio and you want to put it. You don't want to tell people how bad it is or whatever. You try to make it. But it wasn't. It was hard work sometimes to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, as they say. So we had to do that. There's a freshness there. You come home and you want to talk about football. You want to watch football. You meet people, and there's an enthusiasm about football, and that's the way the football's played. That joie de vivre, that kind of excitement, and I will make the point as well, Sean. Last week we saw some big losses. Now they're not as big as you might think with the 2-pointers and whatnot, but I think that the teams that maybe in the past made themselves difficult to beat and try to not lose and maybe sneak a win, that's getting harder to do under the new rules because it's a forwards game. If you have quality in the forward line, you have a great chance because it can be a bit of a shootout. And I think teams that possess that quality are really winning by bigger margins. And I think that has been the case. You know, we hadn't had too many tight games. The tightest game we've had there, I think, at the weekend was Anna Mullen and Inniskeam, which was a kind of a funny game. We'll come to that in a minute, but definitely quality is winning out now. More, that is 100%. You blanket defenses that are not what they were, and you see that even when you try to do it, you can get opened up when you're running off the shoulder and you have quality forwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And that has been very evident. We'll just close up maybe Group 1. So it is Clontibbert at the top on 3 points. They have that 1 win and a draw. Carduff then second, having picked up their first win with that victory over True, having lost to Clontibbert the opening day. True also on 2 points. They beat Cromartin. Cromartin had their bye last weekend. They're on 2 points, but lost heavily to Carduff. Scotstown just on the 1 point. Now, that would leave them in 4th place in that group in the relegation end of things. Listen, there's a lot of football to be played, but that's where they find themselves at the moment with the draw against Clontibbert, and Cromartin obviously propping up the table, still waiting to pick up their first points after that opening round loss, I should say, to True. So sort of closes out that group. Very briefly, the games this weekend, Cromartin, Carduff. Carduff away to Cromartin. Interesting. Seamus McGinney said Cromartin is never an easy place to go and get the points, but on their form last weekend, sort of getting themselves back in shape. You're not putting words in your mouth. You'd have to be fancying Carduff for that.
Yeah, I am fancying Carduff. On Cromartin, played very well away from home against True, hung around a long time. They scored 3 goals and 12 points, 2-8 coming off the boot of Stephen Mooney. They need more help for Stephen Mooney. They'll need Jack Brannigan and the likes, and David Hanley and Kevin Nolan come in and scored a goal, in fairness, but they'll need more scores coming from up because Stephen Mooney, no more than Conor McManus having 2 men on him, and Stephen Mooney's going to be well marked, but he's hard to mark. He's left and right footed. He's an exceptional footballer, but he'll need more scores coming from other areas of the pitch. And for me, that could be a problem for Cromartin. I think Carduff, as a unit, are going to, they're going to try and build on what they did against True. They have to win as well. They'll know that a win will put them where they need to be into knockout football. Cromartin know they have to win, and they're at home. And I always maybe underestimate Cromartin and write them off, but I do feel that Carduff will have too much for this one, and that's just how I feel. But that's it. Cromartin will need more scores. Steve Mooney exception, but they'll need extra help coming for on the scoreboard. And if they can do that, then they'll trouble Carduff. And if they can get off the shoulder and break that first defender and get a couple of goals, then anything's possible. Because playing at home is a big help. But Carduff's strong.
Yeah. Absolutely. And similar, maybe True, Scotstown coming from 2 different backgrounds. Yes, Scotstown be disappointed. They coughed up an 8 or 9 point lead, actually, and then coughed up their 2 point lead at the very end, a draw with Clontibbert. They're going to be the stung animal going into this one. True coming off the back of that poor performance and poor loss against Carduff. Again, it's home advantage to them. They'll want to be putting a performance in, but it's still hard to look past the reigning champions.
Yeah, Louis Kelly went off with that hamstring injury against Carduff. And you're still without Gary Mohan. Ryan Mohan's playing brilliant football, I have to say, though. They're going to come up against a team that's now up and running in the championship. And remember, Scotland didn't lose as well. It feels nearly like we talk about, they're not better, and they hadn't played, and they were down players. Their injuries will be a problem. If they have, they'll have to look at how they're going to work that. And it's a local derby. There'll be no love lost now. So, Scottstown will be favourites for that, and I think Scottstown will win. But Scottstown will want, and David McCaig talks about this whenever you're talking, he'll want a performance from Scottstown, and he'll want a more clinical performance. He said they were 1-8 to 2 points up, I think, at one stage. They were definitely 1-5 to no score up, or maybe something like 1-5, whatever it was. Yeah. They were well up, and he will want a more clinical, and when they have a team and by the jugular, he'll want to finish the job, and that will possibly disappoint them. And they'll be a tough outfit now this weekend. And True going to have to dust themselves down, minus a couple of players possibly. You'd have to say at Scottstown are in a strong position on that one, provided but they'll have their own problems, and we don't know. We're not privy to how those injuries are cleaning up, but that'll going to be a bit of a battle now. But I think Scottstown will their need, I think, to get back on the winning ways will get them through it, in my opinion.
Yeah. Now, we'll take your opinion, Fergal.
Well,
That's what we're here for.
I reluctantly give it, but now I have to now I have to duck and dive around all these grounds.
You're good at it. You're good at it. We know that.
For a big man, I'm good at hide and seek. Yeah.
Turning to Group 2 then, and just looking at the table, a little bit more straightforward in this table, actually, which is interesting. Latin and Inniskeen, both unbeaten, 2 wins, so they're on 4 points. Their wins, Latin's coming over Armullen and Monaghan, who entered the championship last weekend. Inniskeen with that win over Ballybay, and then just getting it past Armullen. I was surprised, I must admit, by that result. So it's Monaghan, Ballybay, Armullen, all looking to pick up the first points. Monaghan, Ballybay have only the 1 game played, Mullen with 2. So looking at that table, yes, you have 2 already. So now you have 3 vying to get that 3rd remaining spot to get into knockout football. And that really opens it up. There's going to be more of a focus nearly on the relegation battle in this group now than more so than what's going into the knockout stages.
Yeah, I was at the Mullen in a game. A funny type of game, Sean. It was strong enough breeze as well. It was that swirly breeze. I was talking to Mickey Conlon after and John McEnany. I was trying to figure out what way the wind was kind of blowing. It was very difficult. Inniskeen were in control, really, of this game throughout. Andrew Woods in spectacular form. He's really playing well. He scored 1-6 out of that 2-10. Just a worrying thing for Inniskeen. They've won their 2 games. They've done what they've needed to do without setting the world alight. Andrew Woods with a 2-pointer in the 19th minute of the second half. They didn't score again for the rest of the match, and there was about 5 minutes injury time played on top of that. So you're looking 15-16 minutes without scoring, which is a certain concern for Inniskeen. And it was at that stage, by my reckon, and I think it was 2-10 to 6 points in favour of Inniskeen. It finished up 2-10 to 14 points. And Mullen had chances as well. They put a man marker. Shane Hannerty man marked Micheál Bannigan, did well. And Shane's playing very, very well. He's their kind of go-to guy. But Mullen, as they do, and I knew after the Latin performance, did show some character, and they did. They just fell short. Didn't play overly well, missed a lot as well. But they led the charge then. Micheál Bannigan got the show on the road, and he was helped by a few Jason Duffy. I'm just trying to think that I'll have it here maybe. I'm just trying to see who else tapped in. Yeah, Jason Duffy was very good. He helped in with a couple of great scores as well, and Tiernan Duffy tipping in as well. So they showed great character, and that's the thing about Mullen. I tell you what, Mullen, Ballybay, next week. Ooh, local derby. They're all kind of local, but this one's very local, and both of them have to win. They have to win. There's no doubt about it. Ballybay ravaged with injuries as well. I alluded to it last week. I don't think the injury crisis has improved. The injuries we're talking about with Desi and Drew Wiley are long term, and I think Shane Hannerty has a hamstring injury, and it's notoriously difficult to fix these hamstring injuries. You're looking at 6 weeks minimum, so they're under pressure. Mullen will be buoyed by the way they ended that game. They ended on a positive note. They fell short, but they were trying to win the game at the end. Ballybay, after that disappointing performance against Inniskeen, have had a week off now. That's going to be really tough. That's going to be proper. Whoever loses that one is facing, and Ballybay are in trouble as well, in the sense they have to win because they don't want to get sucked into that relegation, considering they're already in the league final relegation. So there's pressure on Ballybay. And there's pressure on Mullen too. Mickey Conlon, their manager, Rockcurry man, now up in Bettystown with St. Columkills. Son plays with Meath. Had a great chat with him after, and he just really wants that win. But there's probably a bit more. There's a good vibe. There's not a bad vibe. They were very disappointed after that defeat, Mullen, but they will be going in not bad position, in the sense they finished the game so well. Not sure how Ballybay are feeling, but they're at home and they'll know what they're up against, so they're going to have to put in a performance too. That's big. That's a great championship match, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, it's the proper Jeopardy one. I think it's Shane McGuinness, isn't it, that had the hamstring injury there
Yeah,
as well.
so
That
Shane
didn't
McGuinness,
notice
yeah,
yet.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that has had long-term one that have knocked them out. And that's the thing about it. And listen, it's documented, well documented. We've seen the league form of Ballybay, and we know the difficulty that they're in there at the moment. But from their perspective, they're probably happy to see two teams that are pushing ahead of them and leaving it. Well, listen, we can look around us and maybe take points here. As I said, if they all have been taking points off each other and Ballybay were sitting propping up that table on no points, they'd find themselves in a worse position. They know now by looking at it, well, Bahrathcloon and Mullen are in the same boat as ourselves here. One good result could be enough just to move us up the table.
Listen, one win. It's not even about the points. It's about the vibe it gives you. Like,
Yeah.
I remember you go to in the county league, like in the Allianz League. I remember, you go up to a match, and I remember going up to Ballybuffet and or Monaghan beating Donegal, and you just cock of the walk, or you went down to Newbridge and got beaten, and then you go up and beat Donegal. A win, it changes everything. Not
Yeah.
just it changes how you train, it changes how you feel, it changes everything. So a win for either of these sides, and we're back up and running. And look, Ballybay are going to use the siege mentality. Everyone's writing them off now with the injuries and everything else. So there's an opportunity for the lads who are there to listen, hang on a second. We're not going to go down without a fight. But neither are Mullen. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. That's going to be a real battle. And I think maybe Mullen are in a slightly better position at the minute, but that's not to say this is going down to the wire, in my opinion. And whoever gets the goals are going to win this one. I'm expecting a big performance from Michael Bannigan on this one, so I am. I think whatever team gets the goals, probably neither, not scoring a whole lot of goals. Mullen didn't score last weekend; scored 14 points, but didn't score any goals, and didn't really threaten that much as well. So they'll be looking. I think goals will be big on this one.
It certainly will. Well, it's the old cliched line, goals wins games. So who can get them, I suppose, in that one? That's a big one. 3:30 on Saturday, actually. And I know you're going to be there with that one, Fergal, for us, covering it. I can imagine a big crowd going to be in Pierce Park as well, Pierce Brothers Park then as well for that. The other one, Inniskeen, Maharathcloon, another good local derby there as well. How disappointed were Maharathcloon, or how disappointing were they last weekend? Latin, we know, we've seen them against Mullen and what they're capable of, but I thought this would be the tighter of all the games over the weekend, and as it transpired, Latin pulled away a 6-point win.
It was tight though, Sean, I have to say, and it was very windy up there in Maharathcloon, and Latin had the wind in the first half. 11-9 at half time. Tight game, tough game. But I tell you, Latin are playing with a very nice bit of freshness. And when the sides met in the league semi-final, Maharathcloon beat them by a point. Great game it was. Maharathcloon, as I said, have the same management with the juniors and seniors. Maharathcloon beat Latin in the O'Duffy Cup as well. They've been getting wins, and they've been getting wins against Latin. So it was stacking up. And David Lennon did say to me after I interviewed him after the Mullen game, like, Maharathcloon are getting a couple of wins in us here, and they were motivated. But there's a nice vibe about Latin. And this man, Aaron Mulligan, I said it last week, he scored 2-4 against Latin, against Mullen. He scored 9 points out of that 20 against Maharathcloon. He is playing really, really well. He's just a real sharpshooter. He scored a couple of 2-pointers as well, and those 2-pointers are big. But Maharathcloon will be disappointed. They didn't perform as well as they can. I spoke to the management, Damien Feeney and Eamon Hughes after. I spoke to Damien, the manager, Eamon's the coach and selector, but they were very disappointed. They didn't feel they performed as well as they could. And Latin just went for it in the second half. Playing against the wind didn't affect Latin because they played a running game. Cian Hughes, James Hughes, Kieran Duffy, he's down as full back, but he was up scoring points, and he was torn in the side from Maharathcloon throughout. James Slevin, excellent. Thomas McPhillips, got to be back in the county setup soon now because he's playing such good stuff. But Owen Duffy is injured, but Stephen McCabe flying, Dara Dempsey, Shane Slevin, Conor McCabe chipping in, Darren McElroy, and of course Aaron Mulligan. They've got a bit of quality up front now. Latin, hungry at the back, playing that running game off the shoulder, and everyone's taking responsibility. They were full value for the win. Maharathcloon will be disappointed. But I tell you, Maharathcloon are good, and they're not a bad team overnight. They're building something nicely there. They have a good management team, and now the management have to galvanise the team. Okay, they haven't lost in a while. They've lost now, and now they've got to build it up against an Inniskeen team at home, who, as I said, played well and are playing well and have 2 wins on the board. That's the most important thing. And they've got a foot now they're pretty much in the quarter-final. Now they'll want to get straight into the semi-final. Kieran McNulty playing in midfield now, kind of replacing that Tommy Dornan position. As I say, Andrew Wood's going very, very well. And I tell you who's playing well as well for Inniskeen, Connor Jones. Very, very well. Playing great stuff. And as I said to you, I'm always looking at possible county men to come in, and he's certainly putting his hand up. Shane Hannerty flying, has been on the county before. They're doing well in Inniskeen. Ronan Megan, the goalkeeper, come up and chipped over a point. They're using Aidan Woods going well. And Shane Woods back from a long-time injury. He's a strong man, and he's a real, enforcer around the middle, and can get ball and score as well. So, I think Maracloon are going to have to get a serious performance. It's going to be tough away from home. That's a real tight game. There's no doubt about it, Sean. The need of Maracloon, they must win now. You don't want to lose 2 in a row, but it's not very easy going to Inniskeen. The only thing is, will Inniskeen, you'd have to say, will their motivation be as strong as Maracloon's, because they're already qualified really for the quarter-final, but they're at home and they have 2 games under their belt. These games now are getting tighter now. We're talking, there's no... Inniskeen will be favourites for this one. But I think Maracloon will put on a big, big performance. But I say home venue and the fact they have 2 wins under their belt is a great thing for Inniskeen, but will it dull their hunger a little bit? Possibly. Maracloon have to win. That's the bottom line. They have to win. So that is the message the management will be giving them. And... Inniskeen say they'll have to win too, but they know that they have a foot in knockout stages.
I think that's a heart over a head there now that's brought that one in, so it is.
Well, I said nothing there because I get well looked after in Inniskeen. Gemma Woods and co there look after me well, and I'm not jeopardising that, John. So I'm not going to go too far into that one.
So, in fairness to your calls last week, you had Inniskeen to have a narrow win over Amul, and that was the case. I know it was heart over head, Maracloon over Latin. In fairness,
I had to be. I couldn't. I have to walk around the area. I have to be very careful, John. This is a dangerous game you have me. This tightrope is tough now.
It is. You called Carduff over True, and it would go down to the wire, but you edged it to Scottstown because of home advantage. So, in fairness, it was Desimone took your glory on that one, so he did.
Well, I don't mind. Like Desi needed a lefty. He's low in confidence. No,
yes. Listen, it makes for a great weekend. We're really looking forward to them games, and just to highlight once more, we'll have coverage of them all on our weekend sports, so we will, and reports going up and reaction on our websites at northernsound.ie. Just very briefly, on the intermediate and the junior championships, just to keep people updated on those, Fergal, as well, looking at them. In the intermediate championship group, Carrickmacross on 4 points, Dunamine on 4, so 2 wins from 2 there. To Hamlet, Drumhowen and Tome, all with the points still trying to be picked up. I know the Hamlet and Drumhowen have only played the 1 game. Tome have played 2. Carrickmacross with the bye this weekend. This weekend sees the Hamlet taking on Tome, so that's a big one. That's a Ballybay-Ahamullen sort of fixture there as well. And it's Dunamine taking on Drumhowen. Drumhowen in bad need of picking up points for themselves there also. So as you'd expect in intermediate football, it's very, very tight. In the other group, Blaney with a win and a draw now. They drew against Holland at the week. No, they beat Holland. Sorry, they're on the 3 points. Cronus on 2 points. They have had 2 draws. They drew with Monaghan Harps. They have a bye this weekend. Killarney on 1 point, Monaghan Harps on 1 point, and Holland on 1 point. There's a group of death if you've ever seen a group of death, but you'll always expect that in intermediate football.
Yeah, Tome and Drumhowen under a big pressure there, just struggling a little bit. The other group there, Blaney, Killarney, they drew. Killarney, tough outfit as well, won this recently. All the teams in that group kind of, they have aspirations to win it. Blaney, a young team, young forward line, building something right the way through, getting their juveniles in order, and they're bringing them through with minor teams and whatnot. No more than Clontibret winning the minor league last week, managed by JP Moan. So, that's very important with all these teams, building that juvenile, bringing lads on. But Killarney, look, Carrick have a bye. They've had 2 strong wins. It's wide open. Holland doing very well. In fact, I was talking to Paddy Hughes. They were struggling with numbers last year, but they're really good footballers in Holland and difficult to beat. But Dunamine, who had a poor league campaign, I was talking to Rory Woods, and he reckoned Dunamine would have something to say in this championship. As it's turning out, So you'd have to say, and Harps as well. You know, Harps will want to to finish. They won it recently. I remember they beat Cromarty in a final one year there a few years back. But they'll want to get some silverware as well and get back up to senior. But Carrick, Dunamine, and then those three teams: Killarney, Blaney, and Monaghan Harps. That's for me is, but Carrick are leading the charge. But Carrick have often led the charge, and they're going to have to finish the deal. There's a lot of teams with a lot of questions to answer, you know. So you'd be a brave man to call it. To say Carrick would be favourites at the minute and on form, but anyone can beat anyone on any given day, and that's just the facts of it. And that's not a get out of jail card. That is the fact of intermediate.
Oh, absolutely. And we've seen that. By the way, it is Blaney against Monaghan Harps this weekend, and it's Killarney taking on Triholland. So there's an awful lot of jeopardy in them games, particularly in that second group. And then briefly, just on junior, Emmy Vale entered the foray last weekend. Comfortable win over Scottstown there on to 2 points. Sean's on 2 points, haven't played two. They had a win over Killeven. Curran on 2 points, Scottstown on 2 points, and then we have Killeven that are at the bottom of it there, still waiting to pick up their points. So they are. So again, it's all fairly tight in that group there.
Yeah, look, as we said, Emmy Vale are the ones that you're going to have to take the shot at. They're the favourites. They're at the top. But everyone else, Johns, Curran, Scottstown, you know, all able to take points off each other. But you'd have to say the standout team at the minute, and they proved at the weekend, is Emmy Vale.
Yeah, and then in the other group, Rogue looking like they could be the ones maybe that could push them. They're topping the other group on 2 wins from 4 points. Rockcurry coming in behind them, and obviously being familiar with Rockcurry, I know they didn't have the greatest of league campaigns, but a win over Orem and a very, very credible draw against Black Hill, who entered the foray last weekend as well, their first game out. And it's interesting you touched on it, Fergal, when we chatted about the seniors there. Momentum can be a massive thing. That bye on the first weekend, it sort of leaves you cold coming in the second weekend, and particularly if you've got a win on the first weekend, momentum's a big thing. And I would argue Rockcurry carried that into that draw with Black Hill. By the way, they're on the 1 point. Abog and Orem still looking to pick up their first points. Orem have played 2, no points. Abog had only played the 1, hadn't picked up any points yet. But just to go back on that, momentum is such a big thing in championship.
Yeah, it is, and momentum in games and momentum. It's a buzzword, but it's true. Like, you know, these cliches exist because they're probably true, you know, and it is momentum in the league table, momentum in a match, playing with the win, 2 pointers, all these swings and roundabouts. Just on the team, Rogue, you know, going very well, and unlucky last year in the junior final. In a very wet Scottstown that day, so they're going well. Good tough club, great club, going very well, but. The momentum thing on all three, junior, senior, intermediate, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you won't. If you got the bye in the first game, in the first round, you're struggling in the second round. But then if you do well and you get your bye in the last round and you're qualified, you're waiting around. It's just, you know, what can you do? And if you're winning and you get a bye, you don't want the week off because you're going well. So it's just, that's what management is about. That's what teams is about. You're going to have to just manage this and get on with it, I suppose. But until they fix that fixture, I think that is the only little area where you can be unlucky. But that's what it's about. Championships are hard to win, and you have to overcome problems.
You certainly do. Well, thanks as always, Fergal, for joining us here on the Monaghan Way podcast. As I noted, Fergal will be out over the course of the weekend, keeping us up to date on all those senior fixtures and what we can look forward to. It is a bye the following weekend, or I should say bye. It's a break for all clubs. The following weekend, the focus will be turning onto the hurling and the senior semi-finals that will be occurring there. And of course, then it's back then to round 4 of the championship after that. So we talk about the moving weekend. It's another moving weekend this weekend. You're going to be moving around the county. I'll be joining you for that as well. And I just find there's such a buzz to it, isn't there, Fergal? Even just tuning in, listening in. And I know we'll be getting the updates with the radio here from round Cavan, Leitrim, Longford and Roscommon. Even if you don't have an interest in those championships, there's still a buzz of knowing what's going on, what's happening, getting round the grounds, hearing the reports.
You know what? It's a privilege, and you go around to all these clubs, especially the way the new format is of the championship. You get to visit clubs, as we do, and all clubs, I'd say, you know, doing their best, brilliant people, and we talk about in a wider context. I'm not going to a party political broadcast here, but we talk about the country and how
Are you going for president? Is that what you're going to tell me? Are you going for president?
Are you going to nominate me? That's the question. But the GA and the championship, and we listened to Willie Hegarty over in Roscommon shouting over and back to me on over the airways. But that sense of something where you have a group. I looked around at Annamullen behind me on the bank. The sun was shining and loads of people there, and geez, it's a great thing. It's a great thing, and it's a great thing to have an interest in and to root us in our communities and all that. And it is important. And you often think about it in the bigger picture. It's amazing. It's a brilliant thing, and just knowing how our Gown are getting on, Crusher Law's winning, and St. Folia's are winning there. Kieran Murtry's after scoring, and how we're getting things going on it. Great crack, and great to be part of it, and great for us to visit these places and to see the great things going on and to get such a welcome and that. And yeah, as I say, it's a privilege. It's an absolute privilege. So can't wait for the weekend, and looking forward to it. And hopefully now these predictions won't. I'll get a cup of coffee given to me, not thrown over me now after that.
Well, we'll leave it on that, and hopefully there is no coffee thrown. Thanks as always to Fergal Monaghan. That's it, the Monaghan Way podcast. Don't forget, as always, you can check us out on any of the platforms that you pick up on your podcast. And of course, there's 13 previous episodes there for you as well. Not all football based, might I add. We have some motorsport in for you there as well. I'm trying to think what else we had. We had soccer even indeed there also for you too. Plenty of other ones to listen back to.